The time has finally arrived to correct the error in my existence, to fill the void in my life, to right the wrong in my ways, and to have you stop mentioning it in my comments. I finally get to play Smackdown 2, Know Your Role.
Ready, camera 5. Camera 7, tilt up. Ready, roll green. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by the lights. Camera 6, pan right. And action. Welcome to Smackdown! Oh my god, this is great! If you smile! We could have a new champion! No! No! You will step into the ring with the game! That can't happen! I can't believe it! The stakes can't be higher! This isn't picking up! What will happen tonight on Smackdown?
I've had such a blast rekindling old memories of the first Smackdown, and how it impacted my life in such a ginormous way that I simply could not wait to finally play the game that has eluded me for so many console generations. The desire was always there, of course, but living in the Netherlands, wrestling was never that big of a deal on this side of the pond. So much so that the sequel to one of my favorite games of all time didn't even appear on store shelves in my area. Perhaps partly because I didn't even buy the first one. Instead of buying the sequel, I stuck to just playing the first one until Just Bring It came out on the PlayStation 2. I enjoyed Smackdown 1 so much, it didn't even bother me at the time. But as the years flew by and subsequent sequels were released, the game kept popping up in conversation about greatest season modes. And the FOMO, as kids are calling it now, began to creep up in my subconscious. So, decades later, I started a channel, professed my love for the game that influenced my life in such a profound manner, and lo and behold, the conversation about that supposed greatest season mode ever has reignited my desire once more. To give credit where it's due, it's mostly you guys commenting and praising the season mode so much, there's no way around it anymore. So, here we are. I've been meaning to expand my content in new ways, and have been thinking about how to do it and what game to do it with. And I could not think of a better game to start the inauguration of this new series I like to call
What took you so long?
Even though I've never played this game, booting it up has that warm feeling of coming home after a long, strenuous day. Or after playing a 2K game. The menus and music have that nostalgic, no fucks given attitude we appreciated so much from the old games, and navigating the menus was a joy. Without exploring too much, I started a 1v1 exhibition match so I could view the roster on offer. I obviously chose Kane, but I took a little time familiarizing myself with the rest of the Hall of Famer ensemble. A few obvious ones excluded.
Well,
Man, what a throwback this group is. With so many newcomers and classics like Shawn Michaels finally appearing or disappearing.
well.
By the luck of the draw, I randomized my opponent and finally started experiencing what I've been missing all my life. The intros look cool yet again, while still not having full ring entrances and relying on the Titantron backgrounds. At least in some entrances there's a slight hint of a ring. Once the bell rang though, I felt truly at home. I didn't expect a whole lot of changes in regards to the original, mostly because it was released in less than a year after the first one came out. It was still an arcade experience, and I loved every second of it. After I adjusted to the controls, of course, I got my ass handed to me until that time. The action was fast-paced, the music was loud, the moves were hard-hitting, and the hype was real. After wiping away a single nostalgic tear, it was time to fully explore what else this missing gem had to offer. While I always thought the first game had a lot of options when it came to match types, I was actually surprised they added so much more in just a few months. It's amazing what's possible with some passion and a little effort. While not technically advanced in any way, they did add tons of replayability in what already was an extensive selection. This time around you could have table matches that could, of course, end in mere seconds, but still. Ladder matches were also introduced and could cause a lot of chaos, especially with friends. I say could because, alas, I was not able to try this out, regrettably. Oh, how I envy those that have these memories. Not gonna lie, I laughed a little when I saw the casket match. Look at him swinging that thing. It did bring up memories of this particular moment.
No! Stop this! No! No! Oh my God!
That's gotta hurt! It's gotta hurt! Hurt! Because...
Another new entry was the Hell in a Cell match. It's often described as a steel cage with a roof, and that pretty much sums it up. However, throwing people through said roof, or the sides, is as fun as always, despite being the same animation every single time. Future games of course did this way better, but it being a PS1 game, we shouldn't complain. Backstage brawls make their triumphant return, adding a few locations and lots of weapons. They're still so ridiculous after all this time, and I love them. What's really cool about these matches, and is somewhat of a lost art in today's offering, and no, I won't go on a rant about the 2K games, because it wasn't a feature found anymore since the 7th generation of consoles. No, but the art of secret areas. If you Irish whipped opponents into certain walls, new stages would be accessible. For instance, if you went into the basement and whipped your opponent on a certain wall, you gain access to the boiler room from the first game, which in my opinion was the most aesthetically pleasing area. Throw someone into this wall in the locker room and you can hit the showers. It's little details like this that made these games so special and demonstrated the love the developers had for this game. Top-notch stuff. I always thought Just Bring It was the first to introduce the Slobber Knocker mode, but after being corrected in my Just Bring It video, I was curious to play the first iteration. For this Herculean task, I decided to pick the manliest of all men, the man himself, Ron Simmons. I know that sounded sarcastic, but I'm actually dead serious. You can't convince me someone ever stepped up to him in the locker room, especially after Ahmed Johnson learned this the hard way. Anyway, 10 minutes on the clock, eliminate opponents as fast as possible. Seems easy enough. And occasionally, it was. Some entries were piss easy and were KO'd after one Dominator, and others went into business for themselves and no-sold 2 Dominators in a row. I got to 14 on my first attempt. Decent, I guess. Curious as I am, I went to look online if there were any unlockables, but none were found, regrettably. I'm telling you, Fred Durst has spoiled me. The matches that return are still as fun as ever. And it's a shame some of them were eventually removed, which is always a bad decision in my opinion. But hey, let's keep it focused on this one. They're in this game, so by God, enjoy it. One thing I did notice that kind of annoyed me was the Royal Rumble. Not the mechanics itself, they were unchanged from the first one, but the load times between each entry seemed to be even longer than the predecessor. It wasn't so bad I lost interest, but it was noticeable enough that it took me out of the experience. I must also add that this is the only place where you can randomly see Ken Shamrock or The Big Show show up. They were cut before the game came out, but were still in the game. I haven't seen them myself, so here's some footage of other people who did have the pleasure of seeing them in action. The match that was probably the de facto favorite match to play with your friends from that point forward was undoubtedly the tables, ladders and chairs match, for obvious reasons. Non-stop madness that could end in mere seconds as well, but usually lasts a bit longer. Even though it is only a 1v1 affair, I can only imagine the hot spotorama this was back in the day with your bros. Damn, I really missed out on this one. Alright, let's see how they improved creation in that short development time span. All the usual suspects are here, from Create a Wrestler to Create a Pay-Per-View. Create a Wrestler is a massive upgrade over its predecessor. Where you were limited to just different heads, torso and legs in the first game, here you could add different types of hair in the front and back, change eye colors, add facial hair, give different colors to outfits, everything. Even the moves have previews, so you didn't have to rely on the cool sounding names to know what move suits you. Remember, this is not mind-blowing in any way now, but considering this was developed in less than a year, it's actually quite impressive. If only...
Don't do it.
Do what?
We all know you're gonna compare it to...
I wouldn't have to if they
Just stop it.
Fine. I mean, even the
And don't mention the pedigree either.
Oh, for This is also the first time we have the ability to create taunt animations. I was horrible at it in the sequel, so my self-expectations were already at a laughably low level. And on that front, I didn't disappoint myself. The tools were crude, but people better than me will surely have achieved some acceptable results. I was surprised the create options were as good as they are. I expected the same offerings from Smackdown 1, but came out pleasantly surprised. Man, I would have devoured this mode if I'd gotten my hands on it back then. Create a pay-per-view is what it says on the tin, and works how you would expect it to. Alright, the moment we've all been waiting for.
Finally!
Season mode time. Your comments have not gone unnoticed. Everyone told me that for a really good season mode, I need not look further than Smackdown 2. Arguably the supposed greatest story mode in the genre. Now those are some lofty expectations. And despite having no chance of actually living up to them, I was hyped as all hell to dive into it. It helps that I adore the gameplay, so my bias is probably going to give it a little bit of lenience. Season mode started off really slow for my character. Being the nobody that he is, and he's based on, I got in a few brawls backstage, but nothing major. The other higher profile wrestlers got way more screen time, and I gotta say, it's quite fun to watch all the storylines of the show this way, and not just focus on your own. The cinematics are really cool for the time as well. Using some familiar events, but for the hardware it was made for, pretty well done.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
Alright, let me get this out of the way first. Yes, the load times for simulating matches are quite lengthy and time consuming. It is, however, quite exhilarating to watch the bars go down and hoping your wrestler of choice wins the match. But also quite exhausting to have to do it for every match. Having chosen the jobber as my protagonist, I've had one match in 2 months. And that wasn't even a match, more a backstage brawl segment for 30 seconds. Which is, well, still really cool though. I was kind of hoping to be able to play other matches on the card, but instead I have to watch CPUs duking it out. It's a good thing I enjoy watching AI beat the crap out of each other, but not being given the option of
assuming direct control
is a bit disappointing. Bars it is then. Oh, and the music restarting after every AI match was a bit jarring and annoying after a time. But you learn to accept that quite quickly. After being a little suspicious of my non-booking, I explored the option and figured out I have to set myself in a path to a championship.
My bad.
Now everything is starting to make sense, and after many weeks I earned myself a shot at the title. I can't lie, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I mean, it's obvious you get the most cutscenes and stories if you pick a top superstar like The Rock or Stone Cold, but overall, I like the setup. I can see the appeal, and would have played the hell out of this for sure if I did manage to get the game way back when. I will definitely squeeze a few matches in every now and then, long after I'm done with this video. Speaking of things going on long,
Where are you going with this?
it is amazing, dare I say heartwarming, that there is still a very passionate modding community that is churning out mods on a regular basis. After downloading a few, and only managing to get one running, mind you, I started a new season mode on an updated roster mod called Shock Value. The link is in the description for those that want to try it. It's a fun mode for sure, and while the current wrestlers are obviously replacing the original wrestlers, and some are quite funny, especially Woods being 7 foot tall, they still for the most part look really good. Bailey does not, however. Oof. It's really cool how they updated all the moves, giving you the option of having 2 finishers and seeing the new arenas. Admittedly, seeing the pay-per-view arena being defaulted to the WrestleMania stage does make it a little weird to see in other pay-per-views during season mode, which I of course tried out. Alas, the Big Red Machine was not selectable, but it gave me a good reason to run it through with the glorious one, Bobby Roode. Glorious! Which replaced the Big Balls Man, as you can clearly see by the intro. Even though you're replaying the same stories as in the original game, it's still fun to play through with an updated roster, and honestly, both are fun as hell. It warms my heart to see that there's still so much love for this game, and more specifically, this type of gameplay. While later games have, of course, improved upon the presentation, there is something so addicting to this type of arcade style of game that eventually became lost to us. While regrettably a one-time offshoot, WWE All-Stars was the last one to do it right. And right it did. But that's a video for another time. It's a shame I never played Know Your Role when it first released, because I would have 100% loved it back then. That's not to say I don't love it now, because by God, I do. The gameplay is as fun as the first one, and then some. The match types are varied and all are enjoyable. The creation suite is way more impressive than I expected it to. And the season mode was a hell of a good time. Was it the best season mode ever? Objectively, no. I doubt that even had I played it back then, I would still not rate it today as the best ever, because Shut Your Mouth, Here Comes the Pain and No Mercy had phenomenal versions as well. But I can say that it did live up to the hype, and wasn't for a second disappointed with it, even with the load times and match bars. Unlocking wrestlers and wrestler parts will never not be thrilling, whether I plan to use them or not. And seeing your chosen wrestler rise up to the ranks to eventually win the title is always a journey worth experiencing. So I can finally lay this burden to rest and move on with my life. Thank you for harassing me with your demands. It was a joy making this, and now I have another game I can come back to on a regular basis. Now, if you would be so kind to like this video and elbow drop that subscribe button, I'd be even more thankful. Also, hit that notification bell while you're at it, so you know when my next video drops. Thanks for watching, and if you have any other recommendations, let me know in the comments below. I try to respond to every single one of them. And that will be all. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got a tag title to win. See you next time.